The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 a.m., but Lisa was already awake. She had been lying in bed for the past hour, staring at the ceiling and counting the bills in her head. Rent was due in 3 days, and she was still $200 short. Her daughter Mia's inhaler prescription needed refilling, and the grocery money had run out yesterday. Lisa rolled out of bed quietly, careful not to wake 6-year-old Mia, who was sleeping peacefully in the twin bed next to hers. Their tiny one-bedroom apartment didn't offer much privacy, but it was home. The morning routine was always the same: a quick shower, instant coffee, and a slice of toast if there was bread left. Today, there wasn't. By 6:15 a.m., Lisa was walking through the doors of Murphy's hardware store, where she worked the morning shift stocking shelves and helping customers. The pay wasn't much, but every dollar counted. Her manager, Tom, was a decent man who understood her situation and never complained when she had to leave exactly at 2 p.m. to pick up Mia from school. The morning dragged on slowly. Lisa's stomach growled as she lifted heavy boxes of screws and organized paint cans. She hadn't eaten since yesterday's lunch, but she pushed through. She had learned to ignore hunger months ago when things got really tight. A customer asked about toilet repairs, and Lisa walked him through the parts he needed, managing a genuine smile despite feeling exhausted. At exactly 2 p.m., Lisa clocked out and rushed to Lincoln Elementary School. She could see other parents in their cars, some scrolling through phones, others chatting with friends. Lisa stood by the fence, checking her watch nervously. The school had called twice about Mia's inhaler running low, and she knew they were being patient, but that patience wouldn't last forever. Mia came running out with her backpack bouncing, her face lighting up when she saw her mom. "Mommy, we learned about butterflies today. Did you know they taste with their feet?" Lisa hugged her daughter tight, feeling the familiar mix of love and worry that came with being a single parent. "That's amazing, sweetheart. Tell me more while we walk." They walked hand in hand to their neighbor Mrs. Chen, who watched Mia for free in the afternoons. Mrs. Chen was elderly and lonely, and she genuinely enjoyed Mia's company. It was one of the few breaks Lisa had caught in the past year. Mrs. Chen never asked for money, though Lisa always tried to help her with groceries when she could. "I'll be back by midnight," Lisa told Mrs. Chen, kissing Mia goodbye. "Be good for Mrs. Chen, okay?" By 3:30 p.m., Lisa was tying her apron at Romano's family diner, getting ready for the dinner shift. This was her second job, and the tips here made the difference between surviving and drowning. The diner was busy, filled with the usual mix of families, elderly couples, and teenagers after school. Lisa had been working at Romano's for 8 months now. She knew the regular customers by name and their usual orders by heart. There was Mr. Peterson, who came in every Tuesday for meatloaf and mashed potatoes, always left exactly $3 as a tip. The Garcia family showed up every Friday night. 2 parents and 3 kids who ordered the same thing every time but were always polite and patient. The dinner rush started around 5 p.m. and didn't slow down until after 8. Lisa moved between tables, like she was dancing, taking orders, delivering food, refilling drinks, and cleaning up. Her feet ached in her old sneakers, but she kept smiling. Tips were better when customers felt welcome and cared for. "Table 6 needs more ketchup," called out Danny, the other server working tonight. He was 19 and saving money for college. Lisa grabbed the ketchup bottle and headed over to help. The evening wore on, and Lisa's section filled up with hungry families. A couple at table 4 was celebrating their anniversary, and Lisa made sure their water glasses never went empty. A group of teenagers at table 7 was loud but harmless, and she didn't mind their jokes and laughter. It reminded her of better times when she was their age, before life became about counting every penny. Around 7:30 p.m., a family of 4 was seated in her section. The parents looked tired, and the 2 kids seemed restless after what was probably a long day. The mother was trying to keep the youngest child, a boy who looked about 4, from coloring on the table while the father studied the menu with the concentration of someone watching their budget carefully. Lisa approached their table with her usual warm smile. "Good evening, folks. I'm Lisa, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with some drinks?" The father looked up and smiled back. "Water for everyone, please. And maybe some crackers for the kids if you have them. Lisa could tell immediately that this family was stretching their money to eat out. She had been there herself many times. Of course, I'll be right back with those waters and a basket of our complimentary bread rolls. When she returned with the drinks and bread, the kids' eyes lit up. They were clearly hungry. The parents looked relieved as the children started eating the rolls eagerly. Take your time looking at the menu, Lisa said gently. No rush at all. She watched from across the room as the family discussed their options quietly. The mother was pointing to the cheaper items on the menu, and the father was doing math on a napkin. Lisa had been in that exact situation too many times to count. The weight of trying to feed your family while watching every dollar was something she understood completely. The clock on the wall showed 8:15 p.m. Lisa had been on her feet for nearly 5 hours, and her lower back was starting to ache. She had 4 more hours to go before her shift ended, and then she would walk the 6 blocks home because bus fare was money she couldn't spare tonight. She checked on the anniversary couple, who were finishing their dessert and looking happy. The teenagers had left, and they had actually been decent tippers. The family with the 2 kids was still deciding what to order, and Lisa could see the stress on the parents' faces as they tried to figure out how to feed everyone without spending more than they had. Lisa walked over to refill their water glasses. Have you had a chance to decide, or would you like a few more minutes? The father looked up with tired eyes. We're ready. Could we get one adult meal to share and maybe a kid's meal? And would it be possible to get extra plates? Lisa's heart ached for them, but she kept her expression neutral and kind. Absolutely, what would you like? As she took their order, Lisa was already thinking about what she could do to help. She had learned that sometimes the smallest gestures could make the biggest difference in someone's day. And despite her own struggles, she had never lost her desire to help others when she could. The night was far from over, and Lisa had no idea that this ordinary evening was about to change everything. Lisa walked back to the kitchen with the family's order, her mind still on their situation. She had seen that look too many times. Parents trying to stretch every dollar while making sure their kids didn't go hungry. The way the mother had quietly counted the money in her purse when she thought no one was looking reminded Lisa of her own struggles just last week. Order up for table 12, called out Mike the cook. Lisa grabbed the plates and delivered them to an elderly couple who always came in on Thursday nights. They were sweet people who treated her like their own granddaughter, always asking about Mia and how school was going. The diner was getting busier as the evening wore on. Lisa moved between her tables, checking on everyone and making sure drinks stayed full. She noticed the family with the 2 kids had finished their shared meal, and the children were still eyeing the bread basket hopefully. Without thinking twice, Lisa grabbed another basket of rolls from the kitchen and quietly placed it on their table. On the house, she said with a wink to the kids, who immediately brightened up. The mother looked at Lisa with grateful eyes. Thank you so much, you're very kind. No problem at all, Lisa replied, meaning every word. Around 9 p.m., the dinner rush started to slow down. Lisa had been running on adrenaline and coffee for the past few hours, but she still had energy left. Tips had been decent tonight, and she was starting to feel a tiny bit hopeful about making rent on time. She was wiping down an empty table when she heard raised voices from across the restaurant. Lisa looked up to see a well-dressed family at table 8 having what appeared to be a heated discussion. The father was holding a credit card and looked frustrated, while the mother was leaning forward, speaking in hushed but urgent tones. Lisa finished cleaning her table and walked over to see if she could help. As she got closer, she could hear pieces of their conversation. Try it again, the woman was saying. Maybe the machine is broken. I've tried it 3 times already, the man replied, his voice tight with embarrassment. It keeps saying declined. Lisa approached their table carefully. This family was different from her usual customers. They were dressed in expensive clothes, and their car keys on the table showed a luxury brand logo. But the stress on their faces was universal. Is everything okay here? Lisa asked gently. The man looked up, his face red with frustration. Our card isn't working. The machine keeps declining it, but I know there's money in the account. We just paid our mortgage yesterday. Lisa glanced at their bill sitting on the table. The total was $67.43. She could see two children at the table, a boy about 8 and a girl who looked maybe 10. They seemed uncomfortable with their parents' obvious distress. "Let me get Danny tea." "Try running it on the other machine," Lisa offered. "Sometimes one works better than the other." She took the card to the second payment terminal, but it came back declined again. Lisa returned to the table where the family's conversation had become more intense. "Maybe we should just order less," the woman suggested quietly. "We could take some of it home." "No," the man said firmly. "The kids are hungry, and they've been looking forward to this all week." The little girl tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Are we in trouble, Mommy?" Lisa's heart broke a little. She remembered being that confused child, wondering why grown-ups seemed so worried about things she didn't understand. She thought about Mia at home with Mrs. Chen, probably getting ready for bed, safe and cared for, because Lisa worked so hard to make sure she never had to worry about these things. "Give me just 1 minute," Lisa told the family. "Let me see what I can figure out." She walked back toward the register, her mind racing. She could call the manager, but he would probably just ask them to pay cash or leave. She could suggest they call their bank, but that would take time and create more embarrassment. Or, Lisa looked at her own debit card in her apron pocket. Tonight's tips had been good, and she had managed to save a little from her morning job. She had exactly $73 in her checking account. If she used 67 of it to pay this family's bill, she would have $6 left until tomorrow's shift. But tomorrow was Friday, and Fridays were always busy at the diner. She could make it work. She had to make it work. Without giving herself time to change her mind, Lisa walked to the payment terminal and slid her own card into the machine. Her hands were shaking slightly as she entered her PIN. The screen showed processing for what felt like forever, then finally displayed approved. Lisa printed the receipt and walked back to the family's table. The parents were still discussing their options in low voices while the children picked at their dessert. "Good news," Lisa announced with her biggest smile. "The card went through. Sometimes the system just needs a minute to catch up with the bank." The relief on the father's face was immediate. "Really? That's strange, but thank you for being so patient with us. These things happen more often than you'd think," Lisa lied smoothly. "The important thing is that everyone got to enjoy their dinner." The mother reached over and squeezed Lisa's hand. "You've been so kind and understanding. Not everyone would have been so patient." Lisa felt her throat tighten with emotion. "It's really no problem. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening." As the family gathered their things to leave, the father pulled out his wallet and placed a $20 bill on the table. "For you," he said. "Thank you for making a difficult situation so much easier." Lisa watched them walk out into the parking lot, the children skipping happily beside their parents. Through the window, she could see them getting into a car that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. But tonight, they had been just another family dealing with an unexpected problem, and she had been able to help. She picked up the $20 tip and looked at it for a long moment. It was good money, better than most of her tips tonight. But it didn't change the fact that she had just spent nearly all of her grocery money on strangers. Lisa folded the bill and put it in her apron pocket next to the receipt from her own transaction. She would figure out how to make the money stretch until her next paycheck. She always did. Danny walked over as she was clearing the table. "Everything work out okay with their card?" "Yeah," Lisa said, wiping down the table one more time. "Just a glitch with the system." "Lucky they didn't have to wash dishes," Danny joked, not knowing how close that comment was to Lisa's own reality. As the evening wound down, Lisa continued serving her remaining tables with the same care and attention she always gave. But in the back of her mind, she kept thinking about the choice she had made. $67.43. Money she couldn't really afford to spend, given to people who would probably never know what it had cost her. But as she thought about the relief on that father's face and the way the children had been able to finish their meal without worry, Lisa knew she had made the right choice. Sometimes doing the right thing wasn't about what you could afford. It was about what kind of person you wanted to be. The clock showed 10:30 p.m. Just an hour and a half left in her shift, and then she could go home to Mia and Mrs. Chen. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, she had made a difference in someone else's life. And somehow, that felt like enough. 3 days had passed since that evening at Romano's, and Lisa was still feeling the pinch from her act of kindness. She had managed to buy a small bag of rice and some eggs with her remaining money, but Mia's inhaler prescription would have to wait until Friday's paycheck. She kept telling herself it would be okay, that Mia's current inhaler still had a few puffs left. Sunday morning at Murphy's Hardware was usually slow, which gave Lisa time to think. She was restocking the paint section when her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen. "Mia is asking for pancakes. Told her maybe next weekend." Lisa smiled despite her empty wallet. Mrs. Chen always knew how to deliver news gently. The morning dragged by with only a few customers coming in for last-minute weekend projects. Lisa helped an elderly man find the right screws for his fence repair and assisted a young woman picking out her first toolbox. Each interaction was genuine, but her mind kept drifting to the bills waiting at home and the grocery money she had spent on strangers. By 2 p.m., Lisa was walking toward Lincoln Elementary to pick up Mia. The sunny afternoon felt nice, and she decided to take the long way through the park. Sometimes the simple pleasure of watching other families enjoy picnics and playground time helped lift her spirits. At 3:30 p.m., Lisa arrived at Romano's for another dinner shift. The weekend crowd was different from weekdays, more families out. For treats, couples on dates, and groups of friends catching up. The energy was usually lighter and tips tended to be better. "Hey, Lisa," called Danny as she tied her apron. "Table 4 is asking for you specifically. Some guy in a fancy suit says he was here the other night." Lisa looked across the dining room and saw a man sitting alone at table 4. He was indeed wearing an expensive-looking dark suit, and he seemed to be reading something on his phone while sipping coffee. She didn't recognize him at all, which was unusual since she had a good memory for faces. "Maybe he's a secret shopper," suggested Danny. "Corporate sometimes sends them to check up on us." Lisa's stomach dropped a little. Secret shoppers could be good or bad news, depending on what they observed. She took a deep breath and walked over to table 4 with her best professional smile. "Good afternoon, sir. I'm Lisa. I understand you requested my section." The man looked up from his phone and smiled warmly. He appeared to be in his early 40s, with kind eyes and graying hair at his temples. Despite his formal appearance, his expression seemed genuine and friendly. "Yes, thank you for coming over. I'm David Romano. I believe you served my family Thursday evening." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. Romano, as in Romano's Family Diner. This man had the same last name as the restaurant. She tried to keep her expression neutral while her mind raced through the implications. "Thursday evening," she repeated carefully. "I serve a lot of families. Could you help me remember which one?" David's smile widened. "Table 8. My wife, myself, and our 2 children. We had some trouble with our credit card, but you were incredibly patient and helpful." Lisa's mouth went dry. This was the family whose bill she had secretly paid with her own money. And now this man was claiming to be related to the restaurant owners. Her first thought was panic. Had she somehow broken a rule? Was she in trouble? "Oh yes, I remember now," she said carefully. "I hope everything worked out okay for you." "It did, thanks to your patience. May I ask you to sit down for a moment? I promise this isn't anything negative. I just wanted to talk with you about something." Lisa glanced around the restaurant. It was still early in the shift and her other tables were taken care of. She sat down across from David, her hands folded in her lap. "First, let me properly introduce myself. I'm David Romano, Jr. My grandfather started this restaurant chain in 1962, and I currently serve as the CEO of Romano Restaurant Group. We own 47 locations across 3 states. Lisa felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The CEO. She had served the CEO of the entire company and she had no idea. She tried to process what this meant while maintaining her composure. That Thursday night, my family and I were doing something we do occasionally at our restaurants. We visit different locations to observe the service and see how our customers are treated. Sometimes we identify ourselves, sometimes we don't. Lisa nodded, still not sure where this conversation was going. What made Thursday night different was that we weren't just observing the usual service. We encountered a situation that tested something much more important than whether our food was hot or our drinks were refilled promptly. David paused and leaned forward slightly. You see, Lisa, the credit card we used was deliberately expired. It was part of a test we sometimes conduct to see how our staff handle difficult situations with customers. Lisa's eyes widened. The card was supposed to fail? This had all been some kind of test. Now, before you worry about whether you passed or failed some corporate evaluation, let me tell you what we observed. When our card was declined and we were clearly distressed, you didn't just follow protocol. You didn't call a manager or suggest, we wash dishes. You went above and beyond to solve our problem. Lisa felt her cheeks burning. Did he know what she had actually done? What we didn't expect, and what we discovered later when we reviewed the payment records, was that you paid our bill yourself, with your own money. There it was. He knew. Lisa felt like she might be sick. Was this illegal? Was she going to lose her job? Sir, I can explain. I just wanted to help, and I knew I could make the money back in tips. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. David held up his hand gently. Lisa, you're not in trouble, quite the opposite. What you did was remarkable. He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of his family from that night. These are my children, Katie and Ben. After we left the restaurant, Katie asked me why the nice waitress lady had been so much kinder than usual. Children notice things adults sometimes miss. Lisa looked at the photo of the two kids she remembered from that night, now understanding they were the grandchildren of the man who had started this entire restaurant chain. When I looked into what had happened, I discovered that you used your
own debit card to pay our bill, $67.43. I also learned that you're a single mother working multiple jobs to support your daughter. Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes. She had no idea how to respond to this
situation. I've been in the restaurant business for over 20 years, Lisa. I've seen thousands of employees handle thousands of difficult situations, but I have never, in all that time, seen someone sacrifice their own money to help customers they believed were strangers in need. David reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. I wanted to come here personally to thank you and to discuss something with you. But first, please accept this as a small token of our appreciation. He handed her the envelope. Lisa opened it with shaking hands and found 7 $100 bills inside. That's to cover what you spent on our bill, plus a thank you from our family to yours, David explained. Lisa stared at the money, unable to speak. $700. More money than she usually made in 2 weeks. There's something else I'd like to discuss with you, if you're interested. It's about a job opportunity that I think might change both our lives. Lisa looked up at David, her mind reeling from everything that had just happened. The CEO of the company had been testing her, and somehow without even knowing it, she had passed a test she didn't know she was taking. What kind of opportunity? She managed to ask. Lisa clutched the envelope in her hand, still trying to process everything David had just told her. $700. More money than she had seen at one time in months. Her first thought was about Mia's inhaler prescription, then about the overdue rent, then about actually being able to buy groceries without counting every penny. I know this is a lot to take in, David said gently, seeing the overwhelmed expression on her face. But I'd like to talk to you about something that could be even more life-changing, if you're open to hearing it. Lisa nodded, not trusting her voice to work properly. Her hands were still shaking as she carefully placed the envelope in her apron pocket. David pulled out a tablet from his briefcase and set it on the table between them. As I mentioned, we own 47 Romano's locations. Each restaurant employs between 15 and 25 people, which means we have over 1,000 employees across our company. He swiped the screen to show a map with red dots marking restaurant locations across 3 states. One of our biggest challenges is maintaining the same level of customer service at every location. We can train people on procedures and policies, but we can't easily train them on something much more important. What's that? Lisa asked, finding her voice. Genuine care for people. What you showed Thursday night isn't something that can be taught from a manual. It comes from who you are as a person. David swiped to another screen showing charts and graphs. We've tried hiring expensive consulting firms to improve our customer service ratings. We've sent managers to seminars and workshops. We've implemented reward programs and customer feedback systems. Some of these things have helped, but we haven't been able to create the kind of authentic care that you showed my family. Lisa listened intently, still not sure where this conversation was leading. Last year, we had a situation at our location in Springfield where a customer had a heart attack during dinner. One of our servers, a young man named Alex, immediately started CPR while another employee called 911. Alex probably saved that man's life. David paused and looked directly at Lisa. When we interviewed Alex afterward, he said he learned CPR because his grandmother had heart problems, and he wanted to be able to help her if needed. He didn't save that customer because of any company, training. He did it because he genuinely cared about people. Lisa nodded, understanding the connection David was making. We've had servers like you and Alex at various locations who naturally go above and beyond for customers, but we've never had a systematic way to share that approach with our other employees, until now. David turned the tablet toward Lisa and showed her a job description. The title at the top read, Regional Customer Experience Director. I want to offer you a position that we've never had before. Your job would be to travel to our different locations and teach our staff what real customer service looks like. Not from a textbook, but from real experience. Lisa stared at the job description, trying to read through her emotions. The salary number at the bottom made her gasp quietly. $75,000 per year, more than twice what she made working both of her current jobs combined. I don't understand, she said slowly. I don't have any management experience, I don't have a college degree. I'm just a waitress who's trying to get by. David smiled. You're not just a waitress, Lisa. You're someone who spent her own grocery money to help strangers because you couldn't stand to see children go hungry. You're someone who treats every customer like they matter, regardless of how they're dressed or how much they spend. That's not something we can find in a resume. He pointed to other benefits listed on the screen. The position includes full health insurance for you and Mia, a company car for travel, and a home office allowance. You'd be based here in the city, but you'd travel to different locations about 10 days each month. Lisa felt dizzy. Health insurance for Mia meant no more worrying about inhaler prescriptions or doctor visits. A company car meant no more walking to work or taking unreliable buses. A salary like that meant Mia could have the kind of childhood Lisa had always wanted to give her. What exactly would I be doing? She asked, trying to focus on the practical details. You'd spend time at each location observing current practices, then work with the staff to share your approach to customer service. You'd help create training, materials based on real situations, not theoretical scenarios. You'd also be my eyes and ears in the field, helping identify both problems and opportunities at our restaurants. David swiped to show her photos from various Romano's locations. Some of our restaurants are struggling with customer satisfaction scores. Others are doing well, but could be doing better. Your job would be to help bridge that gap. Lisa looked at the images of different restaurants, imagining herself in this new role. It seemed almost too good to be true. Why me? Surely there are people with more experience who could do this job. Experience can be valuable, but it can also create assumptions. You see situations with fresh eyes because you're living them. When you paid for my family's meal, you weren't thinking about corporate policy or customer retention metrics. You were thinking about 2 children who needed dinner. David closed the tablet and leaned back in his chair. I've been running this company for 15 years, Lisa. I've learned that technical skills can be taught, but character cannot. You have something that's much more valuable than experience or education. You have genuine compassion and the courage to act on it. Lisa thought about Mrs. Chen watching Mia, about her tiny apartment, about all the times she had chosen between paying for electricity or buying medicine. This opportunity felt like a door opening to a completely different life. I would need to give notice at Murphy's Hardware, she said slowly. And I've never traveled for work before. What if I'm not good at training people? We'd start slowly, David assured her. You'd have 2 weeks to transition from your current jobs, and then we'd begin with local training at this restaurant. Once you're comfortable with the process, we'd gradually expand to other locations. He pulled a business card from his wallet and handed it to her. I don't need an answer right now. This is a big decision, and you should take time to think about it. Talk it over with anyone you trust. Call me when you're ready to discuss next steps. Lisa took the card and stared at it. David Romano, Jr., Chief Executive Officer. A week ago, if someone had told her she'd be sitting across from a CEO discussing a job offer, she would have laughed. There's one more thing, David said as he prepared to leave. Thursday night, when you helped my family, you had no idea who we were. You didn't help us because you thought it might benefit you somehow. You helped us because it was the right thing to do. That's the kind of person I want representing our company. He stood up and extended his hand. Whatever you decide, Lisa, thank you for reminding me why my grandfather started this business. It was never just about serving food, it was about serving people. Lisa shook his hand, still feeling like she was in a dream. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll call you soon. As David walked away, Lisa sat alone at table 4, staring at the business card in her hands. In the space of 30 minutes, her entire life had been turned upside down. The envelope in her apron pocket contained enough money to solve her immediate problems, and the job offer could solve her long-term ones. For the first time in months, Lisa allowed herself to imagine a different future, a future where Mia could have everything she needed, where they could live in a safe neighborhood where Lisa wouldn't have to choose between medicine and meals. It all started with $67.43, and a simple decision to help strangers in need. 6 months later, Lisa stood in front of a conference room filled with restaurant managers from across the Romano chain. She was wearing a professional navy blue dress that still felt new and strange compared to her old diner uniform. The presentation slides behind her showed photos from various restaurant locations and customer feedback scores that had been steadily improving. When I first started working in restaurants, Lisa began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach, I thought good customer service meant being fast and efficient. I thought it was about getting orders right and keeping tables clean. She clicked to the next slide, which showed a simple graph. But I learned that the most important part of serving people has nothing to do with speed or efficiency. It's about seeing each customer as a real person with real needs. Lisa had given this presentation 12 times now at different Romano locations, but it never got easier. Standing in front of managers and supervisors still felt surreal. 6 months ago, she had been taking orders and clearing tables. Now she was teaching others how to create meaningful connections with customers. Let me tell you about a night that changed everything for me, she continued, walking closer to the audience. It was a busy Thursday evening, and a family came in for dinner. Nothing unusual about that. But when their credit card was declined, I watched their entire evening fall apart. The room was quiet, everyone listening intently. Lisa had learned that sharing real stories was much more powerful than reading from training manuals. The parents were embarrassed. The children were confused. And I had a choice to make. I could follow protocol and call my manager, or I could find a way to help them. Lisa clicked to a slide that showed the Romano family mission statement. I didn't know it at the time, but the choice I made that night embodied everything this company stands for. I chose to help, even when it cost me personally. She paused and looked around the room. How many of you have been in a situation where you wanted to help a customer but weren't sure if you were allowed to? Several hands went up around the room. Lisa nodded. That's exactly what we're here to change. We're not just here to serve food. We're here to serve people. And sometimes that means going beyond the rules to do what's right. After the presentation, Lisa spent time walking through the restaurant with the local manager, observing how the staff interacted with customers. This was her favorite part of the job, seeing the actual impact of the training in real situations. She watched as a server named Kelly helped an elderly man who was having trouble reading the menu. Instead of rushing him, Kelly sat down next to him and patiently went through the options. At another table, a server named Miguel noticed a child had dropped her toy and quietly retrieved it without being asked. "The changes here have been remarkable," the manager told Lisa as they sat down to review customer feedback forms. "Our satisfaction scores have gone up 20% since you were here last month. But more importantly, our staff seems happier. They feel more empowered to help customers." Lisa smiled, feeling the warm satisfaction that came with making a real difference. When people feel trusted to make good decisions, they usually make them. That evening, Lisa drove home in her company car, a reliable sedan that never broke down and never left her stranded. The 30-minute drive gave her time to think about how much her life had changed. She pulled into the driveway of the small house she and Mia now rented in a safe neighborhood with good schools. It wasn't a mansion, but it had 2 bedrooms, a small yard, and neighbors who looked out for each other. Most importantly, Mia had her own room for the first time in her life. "Mommy," Mia called out as Lisa walked through the front door. At 7 years old, Mia was thriving in her new school and had made several close friends. Her asthma was well controlled, now that they had reliable health insurance and she carried a backup inhaler in her backpack without worry. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Lisa asked, hugging her daughter tightly. "Great. We learned about different jobs today and I told everyone that my mommy teaches people how to be nice to customers. Mrs. Patterson said that sounds like a very important job." Lisa laughed. "It is an important job. And how was Mrs. Patterson today?" Mrs. Patterson was their new babysitter, a retired teacher who lived 3 doors down. Unlike their old arrangement with Mrs. Chen, this was a paid position, but Lisa was grateful to be able to provide fair compensation for reliable childcare. Over dinner, Mia chattered about her school day, while Lisa listened and asked questions. These simple evening conversations were something Lisa had never taken for granted, but now she appreciated them even more. There was no stress about unpaid bills, no worry about whether they could afford groceries for the week, no anxiety about what would happen if Mia got sick. After Mia went to bed, Lisa sat at her small desk in the living room and opened her laptop. She was working on a new training program called Heart First Service that would be implemented across all Romano locations. The program focused on teaching employees to recognize when customers might be struggling and empowering them to offer help in appropriate ways. The idea had come from her own experience, but it had grown into something much bigger. Lisa had interviewed dozens of employees across the Romano chain, collecting stories of times they had wanted to help customers but weren't sure how. She had also gathered feedback from customers about what made them feel truly cared for in restaurants. Her phone rang, interrupting her work. The caller ID showed David Romano's number. "Hi, David," she answered. "How did the board meeting go?" "Better than I expected," David replied, sounding pleased. "The board voted unanimously to expand the Heart First Service program to all our locations by the end of next year. They were particularly impressed with the customer retention data from the restaurants where you've already implemented it." Lisa felt a surge of pride. "That's wonderful news. I think this program can really make a difference." "It already has," David said. "But there's something else I wanted to discuss with you. We're considering opening new locations in 2 neighboring states, and I'd like you to head up the customer experience strategy for the expansion." Lisa paused, processing what David was saying. "That sounds like a huge responsibility." "It is, but I can't think of anyone better suited for it. You've proven that genuine care for people can be taught and scaled across multiple locations. The question is whether you're ready for an even bigger challenge." Lisa looked around her living room, thinking about how far she had come. 6 months ago, she had been a struggling single mother working multiple jobs just to survive. Now she was being asked to lead a major business expansion. "I'm interested," she said finally. "When do we start planning?" After hanging up with David, Lisa walked to Mia's room and quietly checked on her sleeping daughter. Mia was curled up with a stuffed animal, breathing easily, safe and secure in her own bed. Lisa thought back to that Thursday night 6 months ago when she had made the choice to pay for a stranger's meal, $67.43. At the time, it had seemed like a simple act of kindness that would probably go unnoticed. Instead, it had changed everything. The transformation, wasn't just in her bank account or job title, though those changes had been life-changing. The real transformation was in understanding that small acts of kindness could create ripple effects far beyond what anyone could imagine. Now, through her work at Romano's, Lisa was helping to create a culture where those small acts of kindness happened every day in restaurants across multiple states, touching the lives of thousands of customers and employees. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest choices. And sometimes, when you choose to help others, you end up helping yourself in ways you never expected.